What's going on, guys? I'm Aaron from PhoneDog.com, and you CDMA users, we are about to get some Windows Phone 7 lovin' in just a few days. The HTC Arrive coming to Sprint in 3 days, March 20th, $199.99 on contract. You know, specs-wise, pretty much the same as the other Windows Phone 7 devices. 1 GHz Snapdragon processor, 3.6-inch display, a little bit on the small side, but still actually HTC's smallest display, but still 5-megapixel camera on the back that's capable of shooting video at 720p HD, so HD video quality. And you know, the real differentiator here, physical QWERTY keyboard, 5-row physical QWERTY keyboard at that, and it does have Microsoft's new NoDo update, which enables copy and paste and a couple of other things in the software. Is this a device to have? Should you stick with the EVO Shift 4G, or some of the other devices on Sprint? Well, we're going to find out in the full review, which starts right now. Windows Phone 7 finally coming to CDMA in the next few days. Here it is, the HTC Arrive on Sprint. It's coming March 20th, so 3 days from now for $199.99 on a 2-year agreement. This is a device we've seen before. We saw it at CTIA last year in San Francisco, and we saw it at that media event in New York. It was branded as the HTC 7 Pro, but at any rate, it's finally coming out. 1 GHz Snapdragon processor, 3.6-inch display, so a little bit on the small side. It's right up there with the LG Quantum, and it is HTC's smallest display, the surround in comparison, 3.8 inches. The Focus, 4 inches. The HTC HD7, 4.3 inches. So it's a little bit on the small side, but still definitely functional. The benefits here, 2 things. Oh, and 5-megapixel camera on the back with a 720p video recording capabilities. The 2 benefits on this device. 1, physical QWERTY keyboard. 5-row physical QWERTY keyboard with a dedicated number pad, dedicated spacebar row, and you know, your commonly used symbols. And then a D-pad over here as well. So nice keyboard. The island keys work well. We'll get into that in just a few minutes. Also, it comes with the NoDo update, which is the much rumored update that it launched with, copy and paste capabilities and a couple of other improvements that we'll talk about a little bit later in the review. But you do get that copy and paste out of the box, so you're not waiting for a software update to come from Microsoft. It does come on the day that you receive the device. Otherwise, pretty similar. Looks a lot like another Windows Phone 7 device, and particularly it looks like another HTC Windows Phone 7 device. Apparently it's hard to keep in the hand. But on the left side you get the volume rocker, micro USB charging port. Then on the right side, camera shortcut button. You know I'm a stickler for the camera shortcut button, so it's nice to see that. And then on the top you get the 3.5mm headphone jack, power button, and then your 3 capacitive buttons there on the bottom of the screen. Now the hinge operation here is pretty interesting because it is a tilted hinge, which you know, again, I'll talk about this later in the review, but it's kind of odd to type on this because it's angled back this way versus being angled up like what you would expect, and there's no option to make it, you know, down like that. So, you know, for me, I prefer to have it down. You may be different, but or you may think differently, but you know, it's one of those kind of challenges, if you will. Here's the hinge. You can see how it operates, what it looks like on the outside, and then it's just an easy pop-up. The battery, to remove the battery, simply pull that off like that, and that's behind the hinge itself. So it was hidden there for a second. It took me about 2 minutes to figure out where that was. But you have your battery here as well. 1500 milliamp battery, so it is on the larger side, or I shouldn't say large, but at least it's acceptable, as opposed to some of these small 1200, 1300 milliamp batteries that are shipping with Android and Windows Phone 7. And both those operating systems, you know, power hungry, and they're battery hogs. I don't understand why they would ship with anything less than 1500 milliamps, but this device does. Let's take a look, actually, while we're in messaging, let's just take a look at the keyboard. Same Windows Phone 7 keyboard, you know, and you maybe either love or hate. We'll type in the quick brown fox. Whoa now, whoa now. Fox goes to the market. So again, you know, for me, I'm the president of the Fat Finger Club, so for me, you know, I prefer the 4.3-inch display on the HD7, or at the lowest, the 4-inch on the Focus. This is a little bit too small for me. Of course, you can use it in landscape mode as well if you want to. And it's interesting because, and I mentioned this in the first impressions, if you caught the first impressions article, the sound seems to be a little bit behind. It definitely keeps up with my text, but the sound just seems off. I don't know if that makes any sense or not, but it just seems like it's a little bit, how are you doing? See, it keeps up with me just fine, but it seems like that sound's about half a second behind, which is something I've noticed all throughout the testing of the unit. So physical QWERTY, or I mean on-screen QWERTY rather, works well. Same typical Windows Phone 7 on-screen QWERTY, and then you with pretty decent auto correction. Like I said, I've shown this before in videos. You know, you tap the word, you can change it from brown to grown, from quick to which, to from Fox to did, and from thee to that, you know. So them, which, grown did, you know, very easy to change a sentence based on just tapping the word. Now that's where copy and paste comes into play as well, because you can tap a word, you'll see how it does that, and then I can drag and bring out, you know, let's copy that sentence, for example, and then I can either tap and click paste, and then I can bring it back, paste again, just keep swiping down there. And originally I didn't think that you could do that, but somebody pointed that out in the comments on Phone Dog, so special thanks to them for showing me that. And then also, of course, let's start a new message, for example. Let's save that as a draft, and then bring this back up. Sorry. And then let's see. Bam. So you see you can do it in a new message as well. It's not restricted to that current message. So it's still, you know, maybe not the best implication, or can't talk today, not the best copy and paste whatsoever implementation. But it's certainly decent and a good start. So it has a Vibro QWERTY keyboard as well, and you have that dedicated number pad, like I said, and a dedicated row for your space and your symbols. So we'll take a look at that. Island keys, nice and separated. These keys are a little chiclety to me, but otherwise they seem to be pretty decent. Let's type the quick brown fox is ready to go home. So you can see, you know, on this side it's interesting because this kind of resembles a physical QWERTY keyboard, just the angle in which these keys are angled. But on this side it just doesn't feel as much like a QWERTY, and for whatever reason, you know, I just felt like I was constantly making mistakes, even a few days in, as a result of not knowing quite where the keys were. So on this side I'm fine, but anywhere on this side to the right of the keyboard I seem to have some issues. So the quick, and I have to keep kind of staring down at it, quick brown fox is awesome. So you see, kind of frustrating. So let's take a look at the home screen. You know, there aren't any changes here. So if you've seen the HD7, the Focus unboxings, the reviews, anything like that, no major differences. Of course, you have your tiles here, and this is designed, according to Microsoft, kind of like a subway, the Metro UI as they call it. So you have these tiles, some of which are longer, some of which are squares. Unfortunately, there's no way to change that as of yet. I'm hoping in future updates they realize the potential there. You know, for example, the messaging tile. That really should be a rectangular tile, because you could have messaging previews out here, you know, messages from certain people. The people tile could be a rectangular one, the email tile, and you don't have the option to select that as of yet. It's kind of a random, you know, which one's going to be rectangular, which one's going to be square, and you kind of wait and see. Calendar, pictures, sprint zone, things like that are square, but then you look at Internet Explorer, messaging, some, you know, that seem like they would be square and they're not. So you can't change that yet. Hopefully they will allow that in the future, but you can move stuff around. Let's take a look at maps, for example. We can move it over here, bring it in, we can move it up, put it there, and then let's say we want to pin something to the start screen. Let's bring the calendar out, which actually that's already on the start screen, which is why it's not letting me. Let's do sound enhancer. That may already be on the start screen too. Okay, pin to start, so you can see, brought it down, press tap or tap to hold, bam, it's on there. So no changes there. Of course you have, and you'll have little things you can see like your marketplace, which shows the apps that need to be updated. So there are some, you know, kind of notification options available, but they're very, very, very basic. Nothing advanced here by any means in comparison to WebOS or Android or anything like that. Now in the menu, oh, and by the way, while I'm thinking about it, the color scheme, I have it set to brown and black. You can change that, although it's still pretty limited. Go into settings, for example. Go to theme, you can change it between dark and light if you want to, and then you get a couple of accent colors you can pick from. So let's pick teal, for example. I can go to light, go to teal, and go back and you can see the boxes, the tiles change. So out of the box you get the typical Microsoft stuff, Xbox Live. You get HTC Hub on this device, obviously because it's an HTC phone, which they've made some minor changes to that. YouTube, which I've downloaded, Microsoft Office, and then you get stuff like Photo Enhancer and Sound Enhancer, both of which are HTC applications. And you get Sprint Zone, and you can download applications like Sprint TV, Sprint Radio, and then Telenav GPS navigators available out of the box. Sprint Navigation is what it used to be called. I don't know why it's not anymore. Twitter I downloaded myself. But, you know, you do get some stuff out of the box. It's the typical Microsoft stuff. But, of course, you have the Marketplace, which actually just surpassed 10,000 apps. So there are quite a few options available in there considering how young the platform actually is. Let's go into HTC and take a look at that. And you can see the HTC Hub here. Bring up the weather. And you do get this live tile finally, but obviously, you know, Microsoft's been pretty restrictive as to, you know, customization like they were with, excuse me, couldn't think of what it was called, Windows Mobile. you know, they were pretty free on the customization, and you saw a device like the HD2 that had Sense pre-installed. Well, they're not as allowing on this device. They're much more restrictive. So no Sense customizations, with the exception of this Sense widget type thing, where you can go into the HTC Hub and get an idea. You'll notice that weather widget right away. You can click on that and you can see long-term forecasts for wherever you're at. It's bringing up Charlotte. So you can see Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then you can see the high, the low. Bring up Tokyo, for example, 36 degrees. And you can scroll through those and get an idea of, you know, you can set different locations, things like that. So if you've worked with any Sense-enabled device in the past 2 years, I mean anything, Android or Windows Mobile, you're going to be used to this. If you watch any of the Microsoft commercials, you know that the goal is to get you in and out of your phone as quickly as possible. No complicated menus, no complicated things. And one application that really shows that off is the phone application. You can see here, call history pops up by default, and you get these 3 icons at the bottom. You get voicemail, the dial pad, and then contacts. And if you're sitting there in a lot of these applications and you're thinking, hey, wait a second, what do these really mean? I don't understand the symbol. All you have to do is click the little 3 dots over here. That brings up the extended menu, and then of course you can see the text below, voicemail, keypad, or people in this case. So you can bring that up if you're ever confused, but we can go over to the dial pad. Very simple, very clean, nice numbers. You can see very easy to type on, big numbers, a little bit of island separation there, and the keys move, which is kind of funny as you hit those. So very cool there. And then you have voicemail, and then of course you can save, you can call, and then let's go back, and you can hit contacts, for example, and you can see some of my contacts and the way the people menu is set up. So you have that, very simple, very clean, no issues whatsoever. There, and that seems to be the common denominator on Windows Phone 7. You know, it's one of those things that either it's going to frustrate you to death, or you're going to love it because you're going to be a first-time smartphone user. It's going to be easy to use. It's going to be absolutely fantastic. Or you're going to be an advanced user, somebody that's coming from something like Android, and you're going to say, this is way too basic. I can't stand it. I've got to switch. Email as well, for example. We'll go into the Old Man McTweety account just to give you an idea, and you can see those same kind of buttons on the bottom by hitting those 3 little dots. You'll see that it's new, folder, sync, and then of course select. And then here's the big, here's the extended menu, settings, add email account. We'll click on new, for example, and you can see what it brings up. To subject, again, very clean, very easy to use. And then you can bring out that extended keyboard, or the physical keyboard rather, if you want to type using that. So in, out, very simplistic. We'll go back to the main screen. Same thing with calendar as well. You go through that. You can see it's set here in 2, and to scroll over between those 2, you'll see the text in a lot of instances kind of runs off the screen. I'm having trouble talking today. Instances kind of runs off of the screen. So you can see what the agenda looks like today, and then you can see the day, and then I have to remind myself sometimes that some of the bills are due, and you can see that, you know, click on 7 p.m. for example, we can set a new appointment, and, you know, subject, very clean, subject location, the date, the time, how long it's going to be. Now, if you want to make it a custom time, they have these dedicated times like 30 minutes, 1 hour, the typical stuff. But if you want to make it custom, you can certainly do that. 7 o'clock p.m., let's say you want to make it 7:04, and you want to end it at 8:11. You can certainly do so. Let's make one. Hang out with the brown fox. We're going to hang out with the brown fox tonight from 7:04 to 8:11. And it's funny, you can really see that I'm having trouble typing on this. We're going to hang out with him in Georgia, because that's where the brown fox lives. So you can see it's going to pop up right there between those times, and I can see it on my agenda as well. So hang out with the brown fox. It's starting at 7:07 and going on to 8:11. So, you know, very clean, simplistic, no issues whatsoever. I don't know why the brown fox lives in Georgia. Don't ask me, but I've heard that, that housing costs are a little bit cheaper in Georgia.